of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, has council had a chance to look over the meeting minutes from June 16th? If so, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion from Becky, second from Mike. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Any additional items for this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Guests in open forum. Anyone here for guests in open forum this evening? Seeing no one, we'll move on to committee reports. Golf Committee.
Golf Committee. We discussed the finances on the golf course and the places where we're up and down. And obviously in the restaurant it's down right now from, where we thought it would be. However, total revenue is up. We have a lot of open golf play, which is like really good. So things are going good, and I'm happy with what's going on out there.
Okay.
Let's make it a long story short. And Josh will be making a presentation on some other work.
The joint planning board was canceled.
No.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Oh.
For you, it was weird.
Oh, all right.
No, so joint planning, we approved there was an item for it was a single plat off of a larger parcel that somebody wanted to kind of chunk out. That got approved, and then there was also adjustment to some of the language on shipping containers. We'd had some discussion in previous months about adjusting the language there. It came back and it sounded like the way it was worded inadvertently pretty much boxed everybody out. So it was not worded to what the intent was, and so it was. We made the adjustments based off of the discussion that we'd had before, kind of what we thought the intent was, and so there was some adjustment just to the wording there. And also the removal of there was a depth to width ratio in regards to lot sizes. And we'd had some discussion about that before. That was removed because there still is a minimum of 200 foot that's still required, 200 foot width minimum that's there. And so as long as that was in place, the depth to width ratio felt was no longer needed. Those were the three items there.
All right. Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance, we met, let's see, June 25th. We did, as Mike talked about the golf numbers, restaurants down, but golf is up overall, so that was good because that was one of the areas there. And then obviously with the BCC getting open in June, the numbers were through May, so we didn't have June numbers there yet. So the only other really I'm talking about, we did receive our first half settlement. So as a city, obviously we receive tax settlements twice a year, and so we did receive our first half in June, the 70%, that we'll get the remaining portion here in July. So that did come in there.
Was there anything, information in there as to whether it was the percentage of paid on time, or is there a lot of people that are delinquent, or doesn't they tell you that?
We just get the number. We get a number. There may be more details as far as what was shared with us. We get the overall number. That was actually a hair higher than the number from last year. Yeah. So if there is delinquents in there, they're washing out minimally. So
Well, because I remember the county was talking about doing an extension, or maybe they did. I think they did allow an extension, didn't they? Yeah, so I was just curious if it had any effect on.
it's good news in the sense, at least through the first half of the year, that, hopefully that's reflecting that folks aren't, folks in the area here are not struggling to, pay their mortgage. So, good news there. That's all I got. And that one.
How about planning?
Planning, yep, Planning Commission, we met last Monday. We had a presentation from Jenna King and Mike Thompson on the our comprehensive plan. So kind of that was the work we had commissioned a little while back, almost a year ago or so, that we had commissioned that work. And so they did give us a presentation of what they have so far here on Monday. It was quite lengthy, actually. It was probably an hour and a half. We had quite a bit of detail there. Also a kind of an economic development analysis too, which was, I wasn't expecting it as part of the comp plan, so it was kind of neat to have some additional information there as well. We also talked about if you recall at our last meeting, we had asked the Planning Commission to take another look at the Chapter 9, Chapter 11 code edits, specifically having to do with parking. We did have some more discussion on that. Obviously, we didn't start to finish, rehash the wheel. We did have a couple changes that we did suggest, and so we pushed that back forward with the recommendation to council here, and I think that is on for to call for a public hearing. So, because of the changes. And then we called for a public hearing, apology, as well for pool code edit, because there was some when we talked about the language as far as a cover and a fence, and so there was the discussion about whether to allow somebody a cover in lieu of a fence. And so when we talked to Planning Commission, when we talked here, we had said we weren't comfortable. They can have a cover, one of the electronic covers. They're certainly welcome to have that, but to say that they could have that in lieu of a fence, we weren't comfortable with that. The ordinance wasn't worded that way. And so in order to change it to how we intended it to be, we have to call for another public hearing because it's changed. So we called for a public hearing for that as well.
Are you the police committee as well?
I'll be the police committee too. We met this morning. Our main topic of discussion this morning was the upcoming budget. It was out of rotation meeting or whatever you want to call it, but we talked about the kind of the budget for this year and just kind of reviewing the numbers because our next meeting is until the end of August, which obviously wouldn't coincide with budget season. So yeah, that was our meeting this morning.
Any other meetings?
I don't know. Anybody else? No.
All right. Any other committee reports?
Nope.
All right. On to public hearings for certification of unpaid charges with Mr. Lisson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we have an RCA before you to call for a public hearing for the certification of unpaid charges related to currently 72 property owners that have not paid for the snow removal services that are provided by the city based on our sidewalk snow removal ordinance from last winter season. So I'll ask for the mayor to call for open the public hearing.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:09 p.m. for sidewalk snow removal ordinance. Anything else you wish to add?
That's all I have.
All right. Are there any guests within the audience here to discuss any of them? Seeing none, I'll ask council if we could close the public hearing. So I'll ask for a motion.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Any discussion on that? Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is closed at 5:10 p.m. All right. I will now ask council how they wish to proceed.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2050 adopting the assessments for sidewalk snow removal.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. We must be pros at no liquor than a whistle.
Nobody's,
All right, going on to board committee and consultant reports. A call for public hearing for city code chapters 9 and 11. Ms. Flipson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as Rick had mentioned in his summary of the Planning Commission meeting, we've been talking the last 4 or 5 months or so on chapters 9 and 11, specifically relating to outside storage, some RVs, and what driveways can look like. This was called for public hearing a couple months ago due to COVID. We did cancel that hearing. So tonight before you is a new call for public hearing for August. So for chapter 9, it'll be resolution 20-51. And Chapter 11 is Resolution 20-52, so there'll be 2 public hearings, one right after the other. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
I know we don't normally do this, but being that this ordinance is a bit sticky, these chapters, do we have any publications coming up before this public hearing that we could help educate citizens in case they want to address any of the issues?
So we are working on that final draft. I know there were a couple edits from Planning Commission that we're working through, so we will be updating those, then it will go online as well. So we can always push on the website and trying to think if we have any public.
yeah, I thought we were going to put the whole ordinance on the website, aren't we?
Oh, great idea. We have the utility bill as well.
Yeah,
Julia
that would be
reminded us. So we can do both those platforms.
And when you say website, I'm assuming that means like our Facebook, social media
Right,
presence
we
as well?
can,
Yep.
tie it to both.
Okay.
Yep.
Because that's, yeah, I agree with you. This is,
Yeah, because I gotta believe somebody's gonna show, nobody showed up for our public hearings that we had with the planning commission. And it just shocked me. I thought for sure there'd be somebody show up, so obviously they haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's necessarily drastic changes, it's just that it's stuff that maybe either hasn't been enforced or hasn't really been addressed for quite a while, so, it's,
Yeah, but these people, I gotta believe that they're gonna be interested in at least one,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely, yep.
I'll make a motion, we call for public hearing, resolution 2051 and 2052. And what's the date on that?
August 5th.
August 5th?
So I think Julie's going to want us to each motion separately.
Each motion separate?
Yep.
2051, I'll make a motion, we have August 5th.
I'll second that.
A motion from Mike, second from Rick in regards to Resolution 2051, calling for a public hearing August 5th. Any discussion? Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And I'll make a motion for resolution 2052, public hearing on August 5th.
I'll second that as well.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick for Resolution 2052, public hearing of August 5th. Any discussion? Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Pebble Creek Fertilizer Shed, Josh Kua. You all looked at me as if I was out of order, so I was like, wait, what?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm stepping in for Jason Scharfenkamp on the next 2 RCAs. The first one we have in front of you this evening is regarding the Pebble Creek Fertilizer building and refinishing its exterior. So this was a planned project for the 2020 CIP for Pebble Creek that we have budgeted $15,000 for. That building, if you're not familiar with it, is located down by our maintenance building, on the way to the maintenance building by the chipping green. And it is before the golf course was incorporated, that building was there. And to our knowledge, no improvements have ever been made to it. So if you happen to make your way to the maintenance building, you'd notice that it is deteriorating greatly. So that's something we had identified and wanted to address this year. And we're at the point where we're bringing it to you in hopes to do so. So staff had engaged a few different organizations in a few different methods as well, as far as investigating refinishing the building or doing a completely new rebuild. So we've got some quotes in there showing both scenarios. But what we learned through the project is the structural integrity of the building is really sound. The concrete is in very good shape. So it's both the most cost-effective method and something that our staff feels good about the way the building is used and oriented, that we would just proceed with the less expensive refinishing of the building. So with that said, we had identified Lincoln Builders as the preferred vendor in the amount of $13,100. Since we started this project, the garage door has kind of fallen off. So we have an additional $1,000 into the project to address that. And then it also has a nice benefit where we would redo the electrical infrastructure within that building. And so with all that, the quote would draw out of our operations budget, so it would deplete the $15,000 that we had earmarked for the CIP spend, and we would go, I think, $900 into our operations to complete the project in the best way that we would see fit. We did discuss this over numerous different golf committee meetings, and the committee is on board with what is being proposed here this afternoon. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I'd just be looking for a motion and a second to approve contracting Lincoln Builders LLC to reskin and Hubbard Electric to update the electrical services in the fertilizer shed.
The electrical, well, that's going to be used for when they have weddings out there, right? So it's being upgraded from what it was. That's why there's a electrical fee there. Because they don't have good power out to where they have weddings out in the trees there by the tee box. So I think they're upgrading the amount of power available too, I believe.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Up in the amperage, which new breaker and everything.
Yeah, new box and everything. It's got few stats. It doesn't have circuit breakers. I'll make the, what company?
Lincoln Builders LLC.
Lincoln Builders. I make a motion to approve the reskinning project that's for the siding. Lincoln Builders. And you want to do both in one, or?
Yes. and-
Hubbard is tied, the
And
electrical is
Hubbard
tied in
Electric,
this.
so they're doing the electrical.
I'll second. Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any other discussion?
Do you have anywhere earmarked, as far as you said, some of the remainder is going to have to come out, the $1,000 or whatever is going to have to come out of somewhere else in the operating budget? Do you have anywhere identified for that?
Yeah, it'll be from our maintenance department's building repairs and maintenance budget.
All those in favor may say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Pebble Creek Local 9 Pump House re-roof. Mr. Kua.
Thank you very much. So kind of along those same lines, and we identified this project to move kind of in lockstep with the chemical building. So on the Local 9, we have a pump house that services Hole 7, which was kind of the old waterfall that ran, very popular photo spot. That pump is in need of repair. So we've got some irrigation issues regarding that specific pump house. One of them has the benefits of running that waterfall, which is an area of focus for us to kind of renew that area because it is a really beautiful spot and used by community members for graduation photos, wedding pictures, things like that. But unfortunately, to access that pump, the roof is structured in a way that we would have to cut a hole in order to pull the pump out to diagnose what the issue is. This had been done previously with another pump where they had cut a latch and put like a sunlight over where the other pump was. The roof itself is original to the property, so there's very much merit in repairing the shingles. So it just seems to line up very well that we would pull that roof, replace it, and then cut in access points so we can easily get to these pumps when they need to be diagnosed or if they ever do come up with repair. So with that said, we had engaged a couple of companies. One of the quotes that we had gotten was from Structural Buildings, and it's actually on one of their quotes for the fertilizer building, but it was $9,600 and change. So we also engaged Lincoln Builders, and they came back with a quote of, I believe, $5,600 to take the project on in the best design that our staff would get behind. So we'd look to parallel these two projects, both the fertilizer building and this, at approximately the same time. We spoke with Golf Committee, and they're very much on board with this project as well. Did ask that we separate the chemical building project from this and present them separately. So that is what I'm here for this evening. So the scope of the project's basically pretty simple. We're reclaiming the roof. It's going to be steel roofing with access points cut in, and the total project would be $5,600, and we would look to fund that out of the irrigation CIP. We do have an appropriate amount of money within that account, and it very much is in line with our irrigation, as it is a house that services our irrigation pumps. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions on that. If not, I'd be looking for a motion and second to approve contracting Lincoln Builders LLC to re-roof the Local 9 pump house.
Josh, is the pump working on the waterfall?
It is not.
No,
Okay.
it's got to come out, and it's a submersible, so they got to pull it up, so they got to have a hole in the roof for it to get out. So that's what it's really all about.
Will that be completed when this re-roofing is completed, or in the?
Well, no, the pump still has got to be looked at after that, after we get the roof. So
We're
we
going to build the roof.
We don't know what's wrong with the pump.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't properly diagnose what the fix is for the pump without removing it. So the prerequisite is creating the space by removing the roof or providing access. We've looked at both scenarios for if we have to replace the pump completely, and we're looking at probably a $3,000 expense. But once we get it out, there might be a less expensive alternative to get it functioning. We don't know until we
But
get
the roof needs to be replaced regardless.
it. Certainly does.
And we're doing it in such a way so we're not going to be in this predicament the next time the pump needs to be
Correct.
looked at. Okay.
While the roof is exposed, we'll pull the pump,
Okay, thank you.
put the roof back on.
No one was answering that question. I was like,
So if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion, we approve Lincoln Builders to do the re-roof project on Local 9, number 7, hole number 7 pump house.
I'll second. Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Approving change orders number 1 and 2 for the 2019 street and trail improvement projects. Mr. Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just remember that look after sitting next to you for a few years up there, so.
Where like there's still something missing, no one's.
In front of you tonight, we've got a couple of change orders for our 2019 street improvement project. Some of them will be familiar to you, but I'll just go through them quickly. Change order number 1, we talked about at 2 different council meetings, one in December and one in April. Those change orders were for additional curbing along 3rd Street. With that, we're actually widening the road a little bit to make it uniform. There's curb on the curb of 3rd Street, and it goes down towards the bus garage, so we're going to connect that. It's about 260 feet of curbing, and it adds about 12 or 14 inches of bituminous as well. What that does is our trail will butt right up next to the backside of the curb. It'll clean up that little dirt strip because you can't grow anything right there, and it'll also clean up the curb run to get it into our storm catch basins. So that was in front of you. We just didn't have numbers that went with the project. Also on that, we added to Parkview project on the CASA 23 and Parkview, the 2 ped ramps and additional curb there as well. So with that, we did get the contractor to add the change order or the unit pricing from the original project into the change order. So those prices are reflective here. We won't see a specific call out for the change order, so there won't be a change order bill. It'll just be added into the unit pricing, so we'll pay it with our payment requests as they come through as the work's getting done. Okay. Change order number 2. I'm not sure if this was relayed to everybody or not, but on the 3rd Street Trail portion of the project, there was a issue when we were trying to put the storm, or the catch basins and storm drain connections into the existing storm run. There's a water service gate valve that was unmarked and unforeseen, and was right in conflict with where we were trying to run the storm lines. So because of that, we had to rework that. So the big catch basins that were being put in place and have been removed and are going to be replaced with a different style. We're going to tap the 60-inch storm drain in place right now with a kind of a makeshift manhole. So it won't be accessible to staff, but it will be for our equipment, thank you. That will be able to access that and keep those clean. So with this, Herbst is the subcontractor, and Knife River have been working with staff to find a cost-effective solution for this. This one is a little bit of an increase that we weren't expecting, but fortunately we were able to take and return those big castings that were not used. So Herbst did the city a good deal and was able to get those sent back, so there was no cost incurred for those. But there still is some time and materials because they had to pull the pipe that they had laid and reset it to reconfigure it. So with that, when council first approved this bill, we did add 5% contingency on the project. With all the numbers that we're working on, we're still below the bid price plus contingency, so we're not going to exceed budget on that. But now that we've got numbers, I just wanted to make sure that we brought it back to council so you guys are comfortable with that. And we can move on that. You guys are comfortable with
I have a question on the ped ramps, because we put curbing at the end of Parkview? But the ped ramps weren't considered when we did the curbing, though? Or what?
We did new, on 23 and Parkview, we
Yeah.
did new curbing and ped ramps to bring them in compliance, so that was
But
done.
is that what these ped ramps are, or is this something else?
Nope, that was part of that.
Okay, but why are we approving another change order then?
You approved the change order, but we didn't have pricing on it.
Oh, okay.
You're coming back tonight just to say our unit
Oh,
pricing
okay.
did line up, so that's why it was brought back to you. And change order number 2 is relatively new, but the unit pricing did match up, so the original engineer's estimate was like $22,000 on one of the line items and $13,000. We actually came back in about 24 combined because they were able to get them lined up on the unit pricing that was bid. So our overall number is less, but we're not approving that specific dollar amount yet because you'll approve that when you actually get the pay request, because they only bill them as they actually do the work. So it's a little bit, I come from a different construction background where change order was specifically priced, you approve that specific change order and you move on. This isn't done that way. We're doing unit pricing. So
Yeah, that's what I'm accustomed to also.
Yes, so Randy Randy Seabart with SEH had to educate me a little bit on that change order because, like I said, I'm used to seeing change order with a dollar amount and we approve that specific amount. So in this case, we are, but we're not paying it all until the work gets done.
I'm happy with it then. Because we also talked about this in Public Works. We approved it there.
I remember reading something too about it, so.
Well, no, we talked about it at Public Works,
Yeah.
and you were there.
No. I'm saying I verbally talked and I read it.
Oh, you read something about it too, okay.
So, I think I'm gonna go home today.
I'll make a motion, we approve change orders number 1 and number 2 for the street project, Parkview and the trail, and the bike trail.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Administrator and staff reports, amending number 4 to antenna site lease agreement. Mr. Knutson.
I feel like tonight is kind of like a rehash night, so I apologize for that. This site lease agreement was brought to you guys a few months ago, and we thought we had it put together. So just as a backdrop, Sprint and T-Mobile merged, and with that merger being complete, T-Mobile had some questions on the wording of the agreement that we had put in front of them. So after kind of going back and forth with a few things, I think we got the wording nailed down. And what they proposed and what I've got in front of you tonight is something that T-Mobile has agreed to in principle and will sign it pending council's approval tonight. So the two call-out items in specific are the lease termination. So something that was in place in the agreement was if the tenant or the leasee terminates for any reason outside of the contract, there was a 150% penalty of the annual lease, which results in 18 months, which was very shocking to me that somebody would have signed that. I wouldn't have signed that for the city, so they proposed back at 6 months, which I would have probably been okay with, but we thought, what the heck, let's go for 12, let's meet in the middle. And they agreed to that. So if they walk away, terminate the lease for anything, they just don't want to be part of this anymore, they have to pay us a 12-month buyout, which in 2020 is $27,000 and some change. So it's a good deal for the city. The other portion of that is the tenant's use of the equipment up there. So ideally, we'd like to change this to a spatial lease, to say, okay, we've got so much room on top of that antenna, or on top of that tower, and they can only occupy so much of that space. Without opening up the entire contract, we can't get that done right now. So trying to get this put in place, in essence, what we've done is gone to a spatial lease. So they want the opportunity to replace equipment as they see fit. What we've done is say, you can do that, you just can't increase the size. If you want to go taller, we're okay with that, but you can't go wider up there. So if they have an antenna that 5G's here and they want to upgrade that, we understand that, and it's 2 feet right now, that's all you can go back with is 2 feet. So everything else that's in the lease still applies. They don't have access without a staff member supervising them and all of those things. So I feel we're in a very strong spot to sign this lease. Again, we have a 3% escalator. This is agreeing to a 5-year extension with 4 more 5-year extensions and a 3% escalator all the time. I did reach out to a couple of other cell companies and ask them, what's the going rate for town? I don't even know what would you get, and they said, we wouldn't exceed $1,500 or $2,000 a month is about our top side, and we're beyond that right now. So I didn't share that with them, but I think we're in a very favorable spot. So
The question I have is, with the new technology coming out, is there a chance that they might need more space-wise rather than?
it's possible, yes.
But wouldn't we want them to be able to do that somehow?
They can if they want to open up the lease, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to shut them out so they couldn't do an improvement.
Absolutely. And that's why you're on amendment number 4. I mean, this has been a lease that's been in place since 2005, I think, and it's been revised a few times. So I think it's a good thing for the city.
And they're good with it if we approve this tonight?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, they're fine with, like I said, now this is the T-Mobile execs that we're working with, and this is what they proposed back to us, because I told them, put it in language that you're comfortable with, that you guys would agree to, so we can get it in front of you, so we're not playing this back and forth game. So the last I had from them is, if you guys are good with this, we'll send the information, they'll execute it, and you're giving city administrator and the mayor authorization to execute the lease then, which would take place January 1st of 2021, would start the new 5-year term.
So let's say, because we got the 5-year with the automatic renewals, so when we're talking about the 12 or 18 month or 6 month, does that mean that if they get to the end of 5 years, that would be their point where they could just say, we're done with the lease, they don't have to pay the 12 months?
Right.
But they would have to wait until that 5-year
Yeah.
period, not 20.
They've got to give a notice at that point, yeah. If they don't execute an extension, then they can walk in 5 years. This locks us up for at least 5 years and kind of assures them for 4 additional 5-year terms, should they want to go down that path.
But if they want to leave early, then there's.
Then there's a buy, right?
Okay.
I'm good with it.
I'm okay with that amount too, because that's, there is a fair amount of work for us still. Like you said, they can't be on there without, we don't just give them access to the,
Right.
tower and go here,
Right.
lock up when you're done, I mean, we do have to be there. I mean, there's some staff involvement there if they're pulling equipment out, so that is,
Right. Ideally, we would like to add into at some point, opportunity, we'd like to add in maybe background checking who's out there, because they do some third-party carriers now or service providers. But since our staff has to be basically chaperoning them, we're okay with it. We'd still like, for staff safety, we'd like to get some different language in there. So when the opportunity presents itself, we will insert whatever we can to keep us in a favorable position.
do they have close proximity? I've never been up on a tower. Do they have close proximity to, like, if they have a competitor's equipment that's there? Are they really close enough to where they can?
They're the only one on that tower right
They
now.
are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I shouldn't say that. Artie Offit might be on that tower yet, but not a competitor. Artie
The farm.
Offit.
Well,
Closer.
some of them have, I'm sure, have competitors on the same tower.
Talking to another cell provider, they have levels on the tower, so they weren't on the same ring. They were on different heights because they charge different for the height of their tower.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, because the higher you go, the farther you can go out.
yeah.
so.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff when you're dealing with these leases.
Wow.
I make a motion, we approve the lease agreement with T-Mobile, or with T-Mobile and Sprint.
Yes, it's still listed as
Sprint.
Sprint Spectrum, but yeah.
Okay.
Spectrum. It's really old school there.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Replacement of exhaust fan for pool chemical room. Mr. Knutson.
Sick of hearing from me pretty quick. We do have an exhaust fan that's in our pool chemical room at the community center that is not up to snuff, and we don't want to invest any money in trying to repair that unit. So it is in a situation where the ducting is all fine, and we can take the fan out and replace the fan, keeping all the other components in line. The recommendation is to go to a direct drive fan motor, which for ease of operations, quietness, and longevity is in our best bet. So we did look, McDowell has done a lot of work out there, as is Johnson Controls, so they're two good companies that we looked at. Staff's recommendation is, obviously we need to, if you don't evacuate that room on a regular basis, the corrosion from the chemicals in there just starts to deteriorate everything, including the metal and the block wall and everything, so.
That from the boiler project.
So, yeah, it's pretty critical that we stay on top of this. So we would look to take the funds out of our CIP, because we do have a decent amount set aside this year for building improvements. And since I work with finance department, since this is basically taking a piece out, replacing it with new, they're very comfortable with us using those funds. With the situation of our revenue and our BCC operations being shut down and with COVID, we felt that that would be the best place to use the funds as well, to try and keep our operations intact as best we can. So with that being said, I would look to, for a motion on the RCA to approve McDowell Companies to do the work for this project.
I'll make a,
Options.
Option number 2 on McDowell is the, I believe that's
One more.
yeah, option 2 for the direct drive fan. So that was for the $6,967.
Is the old fan is belt drive or something, or what?
Pardon me?
Is the old fan a belt drive fan?
I believe so, yes.
Really?
It's 24 years. I was working with Kenny on this. I believe it's
Someone's
it's
biking back there.
original.
it's original 1994.
Yeah, but they had direct drive fans back then too.
So,
Okay.
How do you take me away from the podium? It's like, sit down, dude.
How does council wish to proceed on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase and installation of the new exhaust fan replacement.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you, Mr. Knutson, for all that this evening.
Go
Thank
take
you.
a rest.
Replacement of siding, soffit, and fascia on the City Park building. Returning to the podium, Mr. Lisson.
Walk-up music.
Yeah. My walk-up song would be. So tonight, before we have an RCA and Resolution 2053, looking at replacing siding, soffit, and fascia on our City Park building. So as we kind of continue to look at all our parks and the things that need to be done, this is one of the projects that staff identified. The interior of the building has been addressed and is in good shape, and now we'd like to address the exterior of the building so that the whole building will be buttoned up and sealed up and in good shape for many years to come. The siding that's on there currently is wood and it's aged, and the soffit and especially the soffit itself is just people being around and throwing balls and doing different things. It's been damaged many times and been repaired, and it's starting to look a little shabby. So this is identified as a good project. We do have money set aside in our 2020 Park CIP that would cover the replacement project. And the staff did get 2 quotes for the work, Lincoln Builders and Angel Construction. And tonight, staff is looking for a motion, a second, to approve Resolution 2053, allowing us to hire Lincoln Builders to replace the siding, soffit, and fascia at the City Park building. I can take any questions if anybody has any.
I've never heard of Lincoln Builders until this evening.
No, I know, we've heard of them a
gonna say
lot.
that too.
Like, and they're from Becker, like just,
They used to be called something else, or?
yeah. Oh, okay. Huh.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that's how you said the last name.
It's 2054, correct? Not 2053?
I got 2053 on my notes, but
I have 2054 on this resolution.
That's what I have, is 2054. That's why I'm questioning it.
And what is the
Well,
color of
Mike,
the building?
if you'll.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2054,
I don't know the color
replacing
first.
siding, soffit, and fascia on the City Park building. Lincoln Construction?
Lincoln Builders.
Builders.
Lincoln Builders.
Second thought.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right, call for a public hearing for the addition of mobile food unit ordinances and updates to the city fee schedule. Ms. Belize.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So staff has been working on an ordinance for mobile food units for the city. Prior to consideration of that ordinance, staff is asking council to call for a public hearing for feedback from the public prior to approving it. Additionally, in preparation for the addition of a mobile food unit code to our city code, a public hearing will also need to be called for to revise the city fee schedule. At the same time, we will also be addressing a couple of additional changes to that fee schedule that have come up since our last modification to it. So tonight, I'd be asking for 2 motions, one to call for the public hearing for consideration of the mobile food unit ordinance, and one to call for a public hearing for changes to the city fee schedule. So I'll take any questions, otherwise motions.
We'll make a motion to call for a public hearing on July 21st at approximately 5 PM to consider an addition of a mobile food unit ordinance, section 626 to city code.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Any discussion on the public hearing notice? None. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
I'll make a motion to call for a public hearing also on July 21st, also at approximately 5 PM, to consider changes to Chapter 2, Section 2.19, addressing the city's fee schedule.
I'll second that too.
Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Mr. Brzezinski.
Madam Mayor, City Council, one thing on the food truck change to the code. we are working with our local restaurants to get some feedback, whether that's written to the city council, inviting them in. We do want to kind of balance that so we don't negatively impact our existing businesses. So we are in process of doing that. So please take note, revised consent agenda for July 7th. Item number 1 is hiring and termination for BCC in Pebble Creek. Item number 2 is revision to our annual appointment, and that is naming the Patriot as the city's official newspaper. Remember that launched over the weekend. July 4th was their first edition, so please take note of that. Item number 3, accepting resignation and declaring a vacancy. Remember, Councilmember Troy Cox submitted his resignation, and we need to declare a vacancy. If you recall, process-wise, we did go ahead and post that ahead of time. We'll declare the vacancy. City Council will be doing that interview on Thursday evening, I believe it is. That person will be the interim until we have our special election, which will run concurrently with the next general election. So we'll have an election within an election. Once the special election is conducted, the winner of that race will then take over Troy's final 2 years of his term. And that again will be done during the general election, but it will be a special election. So please take note of that. Item number 4, that's a partial pay request. That's the 2019 Street and Trail Project. Remember that contract amount, $977,406.60. This pay app in the amount of $203,598.35, leaving a contract amount of $721,6104. And then item number 5 is a partial pay request for street and trail improvements 2019. Again, contract amount $977,406.60. This pay app $409,156.45, leaving a contract amount of $311,004.59. Item number 6 is the revision that's adding an election judge appointment through resolution 20-55. If you have any questions, I'll try to address questions. Otherwise, a motion to adopt the consent agenda for July 7th would be appreciated.
Make a motion to approve the revised consent agenda as it was presented.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Payment of the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
I'll second. Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Anniversary announcements for the month of July. Jacob Sanders, one of our city planners, is celebrating his first year with us. Again.
Again, yeah.
Second year again. First year again, yes. Roger Bellinger from Public Works, he's our mechanic, and he's celebrating 5 years with us. Chad Clausen at the Streets and Parks, he's a maintenance worker, celebrating his second year. And Ryan Pexkamp from Public Works, he's a maintenance worker, celebrating his first year with us. And then Corey Booten from Wastewater is celebrating 2 years with us. And Jeremy Halverson from the Water is celebrating 23 years with us. So congratulations to all of those hardworking folks. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
A second. Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 5:54 p.m. I probably did not get those names all right.
You did
Did I do okay? Butkin,
A lot of those are hard to figure out how to pronounce.
at Scamp. What happened to all the Johnsons and No? Did I not get that one?
Johnson's, Knutson's,
Yeah.